Hey students, so in today's video, I'm going to be introducing you to function notation. And this might be a typical linear equation that you're used to seeing that's in the form y equals mx plus b. So m is your slope, rise over run, b is going to be your y-intercept. Now let me show you how function notation is going to look. So if you notice, the right-hand side of the equation is the same. We still have the 2/3 x plus 4, and the left-hand side has a new thing here that is in place of y. Now this thing here is pronounced f of x, and I know it looks exactly like f times x with those parentheses there, but what it actually means is a function with an x variable. And I'm going to show you why this is useful, but basically everything is the same as it's always been. We're just writing this instead of writing our y value. So let me show you why it's useful here. We have this function of x, which is 2x plus 1, and we want to find what is f of 5. And this is basically asking, what do we get when x is 5? If you notice, we have 5 written inside the parentheses. And what we're going to do is replace every single x that we see with the number 5. Okay, so I rewrote the equation down here. F of x is equal to 2x plus 1. And to find f of 5, I'm going to replace my x value with a 5, just like when you're plugging in something for x. And when I plug stuff in, I like to use parentheses. So we're basically doing 2 times 5, which is 10, plus 1 is 11. And so what this really means is that f of 5 is 11, or when I plug in 5 for x, then I get 11. It's kind of a nice way to help remind you not only what you plugged in, but it's like a short way of writing what x or what y value you get when you plug in a number like 5. This is particularly helpful when we do longer equations later on, but we'll do it again. We'll do it with just shorter ones here. So what is f of 3? Again, we're going to replace every single x value with a 3. So f of 3 is 2 times 3 plus 1. So when I plug in 3 for x, then I get 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. When I plug in 3, I get 7. And then the last one, what is f of 0? What do I get when I plug in 0 for x? Well, 2 times 0 is going to make that cancel. We have the plus 1. And so f of 0 is just 1. So the rest of this is really a review of both writing and graphing linear equations. So it might say something like graph the function f of x equals 2/3 x plus 4. And we're actually going to follow the same steps as we would if it was written like y equals 2/3 x plus 4. We're going to start by graphing the y-intercept. Now, if you recall, the y-intercept is our b value in y equals mx plus b. And so the y-intercept is going to be 4. And then we're going to look at our y-axis, the up and down axis, and put a little dot at 4. Then we're going to use the slope to graph the next point. So remember, your slope is your m value. In this case, it's 2/3. And from that y-intercept, we are going to do 2 as the rise and 3 as the run, which means we're going to go up by 2 and right by 3 from that y-intercept. So we're going to count up 2 and then over 3, and that will be the second point of our graph. And it'll draw a nice straight line for you when you're doing this on your unit tests. We're going to try an example from your course material that has you writing the equation of a graph in function notation using that f of x form. And so we're still thinking about y equals mx plus b equations We're going to find the m value, which is the slope. We're going to find the b value, which is the y-intercept. But instead, we're going to write it as f of x is equal to whatever our slope and y-intercept are. That's the only difference. And so let's first find our y-intercept. That's the easiest one to see there. It's going to be up there at 3. So that's our y-intercept. And then our slope is our rise over our run. Well, let me change my colors here. The next point that I can see that is perfectly on the grid is right here at 3, 1. And to get there from the blue point to the pink one, I have to actually go down. My rise is going to go down by 2, and my run is going to go over 3 units from there. And so that means my slope is going to be -2 over 3, rise over run. And then we're just going to fill in the rest of it from there. We have our x is going to be brought down, equal sign, and then we have our f of x as well. So let's take a look at, sorry, I had issues with scrolling right there, but what we're going to do is plug in -2/3 x plus 3 for our equation. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen now. So we have negative. We're going to use the fraction bar to write the 2/3, 2 over 3, x plus 3. The last type of problem that I want to review with you is how to write a function from a table. And so we have these options here to choose from. And the table is written with our x's in the left-hand column and our y's in the f of x column. So these are basically our y values over here. And so we're basically trying to find the equation of a line between given 2 points. And it's easiest, you don't have to find the equation of a line given 4 points because you only need 2 of them to find the equation. And so I would recommend first seeing if you can find what the y-intercept is supposed to be. And remember, the y-intercept is whatever your y value is when x is 0. And so just added that to the screen there. Whatever y is when x is 0 is going to be your y-intercept. So that's going to be this point right here at -1 being our y-intercept. And so I can already see from my options here that only one of them has a y-intercept at -1. Remember, we're going to write an equation, f of x equals mx plus b, and your b value is your y-intercept at -1. And then the second point, I don't know, we could just maybe do the one right here. I would always recommend kind of graphing these points to figure out what the rise and run are going to be, but it's really just the change in your y values from the change in your x values. So if you're more visual, that's going to be, let's say we're at 0, -1 down here, 0, -1, and the other point that I'm seeing is at 2, 2, so I'll draw another point up there. What is my rise and my run to get from -1 to 2, 2? Well, we have to go up 1, 2, 3 and over by 2. We have to go up 3 and over by 2. And we can actually see that in our change in our y values. We use the delta symbol to say the change in the y values. This has to go up by 3 to get from -1 to 2. And then our change in our x values, represented by delta x, is going up by 2. And that's actually the pattern with all the x values and all the y values. So our rise over run is 3 over 2, and that means our correct option is going to be option, oops, wrong one, option C. The one with the 2/3 x minus 1. And again, that y value is the same thing as writing it as f of x.